Hello, it's Elizabeth Busby here, and welcome to Discerning Marriage. Today, we are tackling the tough topic of breaking up and getting back together. Before we get into it, please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you can be notified of any videos that we put out. And right off the bat, I am super pumped to tell you that I wrote a free ebook for you about 10 things to talk about at the beginning of a new relationship. So this will come in handy for you when you break up and get back together, as I will reference later. But if you're just looking for something and you want to do it, the link is down below. Please go ahead and get that. So diving into this topic, what to do if you break up and you get back together. This really applies for any big hurt in a relationship, any big betrayal in a relationship. But primarily I'm talking about if you break up, what do you do if you decide you want to get back together, and how do you set yourself up for great success? The reason I'm talking about this is because most people who go through this assume that when they get back together, they can just jump right back into the intimacy that they had before. We're just going to pick up where we left off, and that was like a weird pause, but here we go. There are a couple of reasons that this is kind of the natural disposition. One is because I think it just kind of makes sense. Like, you were comfortable with each other. You had natural rhythms before. You're going to fall back into those. Breakups are really, really painful. And so if you experience a lot of suffering during the breakup, then it can be really easy to just be like, okay, I want to just be totally done with all of that. This is what I was hoping for. This is what I was longing for. Let's just forget all of that suffering and jump right back in. It just feels almost natural. Like, it's kind of the natural, okay, what we're going to do is we're just going to pick up where we left off. I think that's a terrible idea. I think that's a terrible idea, from a ministry perspective, as having accompanied people through this in, different marriage prep situations, having had friends who've gone through this, and I've watched firsthand, front row seat to what this looks like. But also as a marriage counselor, understanding suffering, understanding relationships, understanding kind of the science behind what makes relationships work. All around, I think it's a terrible idea to just jump in where you left off. And here is why. When you get into a relationship and you are discerning marriage together, there is a lot of trust. The kind of analogy I use for trust is trust is a mountain, and you take a gondola to the top of the mountain at the beginning of your relationship. It is a quick, easy ride. There's no reason for you not to trust the other person. Sometimes someone comes into a relationship with some trust wounds from the past that they have to overcome. But as a whole, you assume that the other person is going to be trustworthy. When the trust is broken, you tumble down the mountain, but then there's no way up again other than taking the stairs. So it is a slog up a mountain to rebuild trust. And sometimes it is a couple steps forward and then a couple steps back. Trust is easily given, but once it's broken, it is very difficult to get it back. And this applies in a lot of different ways. There are a lot of ways that we hurt each other, and there are some catastrophic ways that we hurt each other in relationship, right? Like infidelity. But when a relationship goes so far as to completely end, all of that trust is shattered, especially for the person who is on the receiving end of the breakup. Because one of the tricky things about breakups that people don't think about until they're in it, or maybe they don't have the words to describe it, is the person who does the breaking up, the breaker-upper, that person already started grieving the end of the relationship while they were still in the relationship. Here's what I mean. They had the thought, maybe I want to break up with this person. They went through all the processes of thinking through it. Maybe they talked to trusted people. Maybe they talked to their spiritual director or family or friends or whoever. And they started grieving the end of the relationship on some level. Maybe it's an easy decision, so it's a small grief, or it was really agonizing, so it's a big grief, or you're, ending it to discern another vocation. And so it's mixed grief and excitement, joy for the future. However it is, the breaker-upper starts that grieving process while still in the relationship. So by the time they get to the breakup, they have done a lot of the heart processing already, and their heart is ready to go. In some ways, there's a relief after that conversation happens, because the lead up to the conversation is really stressful and anxious. It makes you sick to your stomach. You just don't want to do it, but you have to do it. So it can come as a relief, which is really offensive to the person who is getting broken up with. But that piece I don't think is personal. That's just humans don't like change, and humans don't like uncomfortable things. And the anticipation is almost always worse than the actual thing. So there's almost a palpable sense of relief, I think, for the breaker-upper a lot of times once the conversation's done. For the person who's being broken up with, they start their grieving process when the relationship ends. So that's why it can look like one person moves on really quickly and one just can't get over it. That's because they started grieving at different times, okay? So especially for the person who's being broken up with, that trust is shattered, and sometimes it shatters like a glass falling on the ground, and it just, shrapnel goes everywhere, because maybe they didn't see it coming. Maybe they saw it coming, but they didn't think it would actually happen. Maybe they desperately don't want it to happen, and in their own discernment, they feel like God's telling them to stay in the relationship. But a relationship takes two people. So if the other person leaves, you can't do anything about that. So it can really be a sharp, devastating tumble down that mountain. Once you get out of the relationship, you break all of those habits that you had in the relationship, right? So maybe you guys always went to mass together on Sunday. Maybe they're the person, like your best friend, that you talk to anytime something big happens in your life. So like you got a good grade on a test, or you got a promotion at work, or this exciting project came up. They're the person you go to. So you have all of these different elements of your life that are tied up with that person that end as soon as the relationship ends. And you have to find new habits. You have to find new routines. You have to make new processes in your life, I guess, for all of these different things. And that happens when you guys are apart. When you get back together, there's going to be a long series of conversations. It's a long winding road to decide if you're going to get back together. But when you do, you have to realize that you are different people than you were, not only when you started the first relationship, but when you broke up. Grief changes you. Grief changes a person. Suffering changes a person. Hopefully, the suffering is something that draws you deeper into the crucified heart of Christ, and you become more like Christ through that suffering, and you share with Christ's ultimate breakup on the cross, right? When he was rejected by his beloved, by humanity, and then killed by them. You share in that ultimate rejection of Christ, and you are a different person. You process things differently. You pray differently. You know Christ differently. There's a depth in your soul that wasn't there before that suffering. But even if that's not how you did it, even if you went the other direction and like binge drank and slept around with everyone and like you put your bleeding heart all over the, I don't know, bars. I don't know what you're doing. Even if you're doing it in a negative way, that changes a person, right? You are a different person after having suffered like that and after having rebuilt the habits and patterns of your life. So if you guys get back together, my number one piece of advice is treat it like a fresh, new relationship. Do not assume any kind of comfort or familiarity or any of that stuff. Do not assume that you can just hop back into the rhythms and patterns that you had before. Pursue it like a brand new relationship.
For accounting, a brand new printout.
And I am talking, go on a first date, go on a second date, go on however many dates you need to go to before you decide if you want to be in a committed relationship. When you get into that committed relationship, don't just automatically jump back into sharing your heart the same way you did before. In some ways, this is going to be harder than a fresh new relationship because remember, you took a gondola to the top at the beginning of a new relationship. You're taking the stairs this time. And be patient with yourself. Be gentle with yourself. Recognize that it's going to be 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, or 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. It's going to be a journey. That doesn't mean it's bad. Some of the most beautiful marriages that I know are my friends who personally went through a breakup and they got back together. Like there is beautiful refinement that can happen in that suffering, but there's very real wounds too. And if you get married to someone that you never broke up with, you never have that feeling of trust betrayal with them. Maybe you have betrayal on different levels, like maybe there was infidelity, maybe there was lying, maybe there was whatever, but you worked through it together as a unit. If you break up and get back together, you experience arguably maybe some of the worst pain of your life at the hands of this person. And now you're wanting to get back in deep intimacy with them. So it changes a relationship. It is not the same. And again, that's not to say it's bad. I mean, sometimes it's better and there's richness and beauty and goodness. And of course, if the Lord allows it for you, it's going to be the best thing for you and your sanctity. It may not have been necessarily what he would have chosen or he wouldn't have willed it or whoever. I don't know. I'm not speaking into God's will in your life, but I am saying that if he allows something, what we do know to be true is that he allows it for your good so that you can be made holy and better through that cross. So I hope this was helpful. I am available on Instagram at Discerning Marriage. Send me a DM. I would love to talk to you about this. I find it a huge honor to talk to people's specific stories. If you have things and you're interested in my feedback, I would love to talk with you. So send me a DM on Instagram if you want. I am here for you. This is a hard thing, but it's a good and beautiful thing. And the Lord can do such wonderful things through your fidelity to your yes, regardless of how much suffering is in it, sometimes because of the suffering in it. So in the meantime, what I wanted to say about my ebook is when you're rebuilding your relationship, grab that ebook. I'm not just trying to pitch my ebook. I'm genuinely saying I wrote this resource for you so that you could have my thoughts accompany you through these stages of your relationship. So I really, really think that for those of you who have broken up and getting back together, go back through, and even if you did the book the first time, go back through those things and discuss again from this new posture of who you guys are now, the different people you are now. So that was a lot, but I hope it was helpful. And until next time, stay close to the heart of Jesus and be not afraid. Bye.